right, welcome back to our Coaching Network 2025, our first session of the year. Super pumped to have Coach Dan Lemke on with us tonight. We are talking marrying coverages, and run fits. Coach most recently was at Prairie View A&M. Unfortunately, staff let go, so he's currently a free agent coach. Has coached all over the defensive side of the ball. Super talented coach. I'm super excited to hear him tonight. Coach, I'll let you go ahead and take it from here. Appreciate you joining us.
Thank you, Pat. I appreciate it. I didn't realize we were the first clinic of
There we
25.
go.
I'm
Yes,
excited.
sir.
So
Hit it with a
that's
bang.
a blessing right there. Thank you very much for having me on tonight and allowing me this platform to talk about coverages and run fits and how they work together. For those of you that are on here live with us, any questions that you have, feel free to hop in, put them in the chat, and Pat will get those questions to me as we go. The more interactive we can be, the better. But yeah, want to say thank you guys for taking the time as well. I know most of y'all are on the road recruiting right now, knee deep in that. So those of you that are with us, thank you for taking the time. In a time like this in transition, you have a little bit more time to do some clinics and things like that. So hopefully y'all enjoy it, and let's get to work. So like we said, we're talking about marrying coverages and run fits. Tonight we're going to go through the basic run fits, gaps, lanes, what they are, what responsibilities are, and then taking a look at primarily three different coverages, your basic three zone coverages, cover four. Now, I'm primarily a quarters guy, but I've coached quarters, I've coached cover two, cover three, man free. I've coached all the coverage variations. So, but we're going to look at the basic cover four, cover two, cover three structures, and how to simplify run responsibilities within those coverages, especially in today's game with all the transfer portal stuff going on. We can teach it more simply to the guys that we have in our room to get them on the field a lot faster, playing at that high level that we're bringing them in to do. So without further ado, obviously this should be basic information for everybody, but we want to run through it and make sure everybody's good with it. Just talking basic gaps, A gap, B gap, C gap, D gap, what they are and what responsibilities we have. Obviously, in some different formations, you may get an E or even an F gap, but those become a little bit more exotic in the principles that we have will tie in and make that teaching simple. So when we look at gaps and responsibilities, the first and foremost thing we have to make sure we understand is against option football, what do you have? So if you have A gap, if you have B gap, C gap, D gap, if you get option football, what is your responsibility? And a few years back, I worked with a talented coach, and I had been so ingrained in saying, you've got quarterback, you've got the pitch. You got dive's pretty easy, but you got the quarterback, you got the pitch. But then what happens when it's a shovel option? So what I've changed to is now saying you have first threat, second threat, that type of thing. First threat attacks the line of scrimmage, second threat attacks the perimeter. That way, it's not necessarily the quarterback is the first threat all the time. He may be the second threat, specifically in zone read, which is an option-based type of deal. So looking at the basic gap responsibilities, A and B gap, they have dive in option. No matter what, A and B gap have dive. They're inside rush on pass, and then on play away from them or perimeter plays, they're a pursuit on play away. So A and B gap have dive. Your C gap defender, traditionally without movements, without restructuring it, this is just basic understanding. Your C gap defender is your first threat on option. So your basic option, your speed option, that would be more your quarterback player. The pitch is your second threat. So C gap is first threat in option, their contain rush on pass, and then their chase boot reverse on play away from them. And then your D gap defender or D gap and wider is going to be your second threat on option. The change up there is if your C gap defender, gets blocked down. So on the right-hand side of your screen, this H blocks down on your C-gap defender, the first threat defender. Now, whoever has D-gap becomes a first to second threat. Force the pitch or the ball to work outside, turn and steal the base, and then we're in good shape. So the next part, that's your basic gap structure. We talk about anything in the core from center all the way out to tight end, maybe even to the wing. Anything in there is a gap fit. If you have a detached receiver, so someone who's split out, that now becomes a lane fit. So when we talk about run fits in coverage and how they work together, we talk about a gap fit or a lane fit. With your lane fits, if you are a lane one fit, you actually have run responsibility outside of the number one receiver, which a lot of times it takes a long time to get out there, but we need to understand how we fit up and run. So if you're a lane one fit, you are a secondary contained player. You're outside in on any option that you have, and on play away, you're a rule of 21, meaning you keep everything inside in front of you. Easiest way to teach that is you are a touchdown saver. And then the thing that's in bold right down here, this PC versus nub formation. So if we look at the left, this is a nub side formation over here. So what that means is you become a primary contained player or the force player over here to the D gap. You're still lane one, but your lane one is no longer detached, so it becomes a gap fit. It's part of the core, it's a gap fit. Now you are the force player. And then looking at lane two fits outside number two, inside of number one. Your primary contained player, second threat on option. Your hold and fold to pursuit on play away. Lane three, if three is detached, it's the same thing. Fit outside of three, inside of two. Primary contained, second threat on option, hold and fold, pursuit on play away. And if there's a number four detached, it's a quads look. It's the same principle. You're a lane four fit. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, tying that into coverage, the thing that's essential is understanding the backfield and in them understanding their run support and their run fits. So from a basic zone setup, if you are a flat defender, whether you're curl flat cover three, if you're the squat corner or the inverted flat defender in an inverted cover two, you are the primary contained player. And as you recall, if you're the primary contained player, really you're a lane two fit. If number two is not detached, then you become the force defender. If you're a deep zone player, deep outside zone, so cover three, you're the outside third players. Cover four, you're the outside quarter. Cover two, you're the deep half player. Naturally, you're going to be a lane one fit, a secondary contained player, and a rule of 21 player. When looking at cover three and man free, you've got that deep post player. Really, they're inside out on everything. They're an alley runner. Typically, they're your extra hat and run, unless it's quarterback run game, and then they're going to be late to the party. Deep zone away from the play, like we said, safety, deep half, runs going opposite side. Cover three corner, runs going outside on the other side. Whatever it is, your rule 21, go save the touchdown. And then the flat player away from the play side. So plays going left, you're the flat defender on the right. You're a hold and fold to pursuit, and that hold and fold happens fairly quickly with perimeter run game. So we kind of talked about this just real quick to identify what terms we're talking about. Primary contain, you run first, typically, and based on where your eligible is, your run fits outside the nearest eligible receiver in the core. So really we're talking about a lane two fit if he's detached. If number two is attached, then you're a force defender. Hold and fold, just like we talked about, you're working towards the ball, the flow of the ball to make sure it doesn't come back on a reverse or anything like that. So you're holding your spot, working across, folding, and then once it hits and it's not cutting back on you or reversing field, now you get into pursuit. Looking at secondary contain, again, that's your lane one fits or your force on the nub side. You're always keeping the ball inside of you. Play away, you rule of 21, go save the touchdown. And then the last bit there is the alley runner. We already kind of talked about that, but typically that's your post player in cover three in man free coverages. You're inside out on the ball. It's that J course, that banana course, whatever you want to term it. You're working downhill, inside out, wherever that ball goes. So looking at some of the coverage variations, starting with basic cover four. This is how I term these zones. Everybody's got different terms for them. But again, it's football. We don't want to overcomplicate things. So looking at cover four, it's a basic 3 under 4 deep concept. So when you look at run fits from that standpoint, we're great against the pass. You got 4 guys deep. We're great against the pass. The run, you've got to get some support from somewhere, typically over top. So when you look at your seam curl flat defender, however you term it, it could be curl flat, it could be your 2 flat man concept, skiff player, seam curl flat, whatever it is, they're either the gap fit or they're the force. So on the right-hand side of the screen, typically that seam curl flat is going to be apexed. All right. So with an apex alignment, they're probably in the gap fit. Now, this is where you can adjust coverage and you can adjust the run fits based on what you're getting. Are you getting zone read? Are you getting RPO? What are you getting? If you're getting a lot of RPO game, that overhang player, who is your seam curl flat player, your 2 flat man player, they're the one being read the majority of the time. So you don't want them too aggressive in run fit because then they're going to throw that quick slant behind it. Or if they sit there, they're going to hand the ball off and try to work back to the B gap, which is fine. So the reason it's in red and italicized here is typically in cover four, those 4 players, your seam curl flat on either side, or your inside quarter, typically your safeties, your lane 2 fits, are usually the 4 that you can mess with and figure out who you want to do what job. Because in run game, typically you have 1 extra hat in run. There's an extra hat in the run game somewhere, meaning they don't have a gap responsibility. They may not have a lane responsibility, but you still want them to help you out in the run fit. They're extra in the run game. So a lot of times you want to keep that, especially with the zone read game in the RPO game, you want to keep that extra defender, that extra hat in the run game to the offset back. That way, if it is zone read, quarterback will pull it. You got 2-on-1 on the quarterback. If it's RPO game, the guy that he's typically reading isn't moving, so you're not giving him something, playing run fast, hey, go ahead and throw the ball, or if I'm dropping in coverage, go ahead and run the ball, and now we're short in the box. So the hole player, typically your Mike, is going to be a gap fit. Now, if you want to mess around and do some different things and make that Mike be the extra hat, you can absolutely do that. Usually to do that, you're going to close out both A's and both B's. And then if you got 2 detached, you're going to allow the seam curl flat player to be your C gap defender. And now on the perimeter, you're almost in a 1-on-1 situation with the back 4. But that way your Mike can roam and be extra. So that's great against the run game. Just a little tidbit there. So here's a look at a few different cover 4 situations. You can see it's a condensed formation here. You've got the tight end, it's 21 personnel look. You've got a D gap here. So when you're looking at it, going back through our lanes and our gaps with a 4-down lineman, it makes it pretty easy, right? You've got D gap defender right here. That's your force defender. You've got your lane 1 defender. This is going to be the guy who's extra in the run game. If you stay gapped out and you don't mess with anything else, here's your lane 1 run fit. All right. So now I would chop this side up because you can have the Mike play A gap, B gap. He would be your D gap defender. All right. Or you can plus the backers over and now get this backside safety in the run fit because you need one of these 2 safeties to be in the fit based on where this fullback or this sniffer inserts. So let's take a look at the tight view on this and work through it here. So right now, as it's set up, as it's structured, take the fullback out, basic gaps, your C, your A, your B, your C. Now you're thinking he's your D gap fit. All right, you've got an A gap defender, a B gap defender, but you got to add somebody back in based on where this fullback goes. So that's part of the coverage run fit that you can play with. Who is it going to be that's fitting off of him? Now, in quarters coverage, typically you're going to mess with the two safeties in this case, maybe even the nickel. If you want to take the nickel and bump him in the box and put him here, we're in great shape. Now your safety will come down to be the D gap fit. And then, let me clear this for you guys here. And then we'll put the nickel in the box here. So now it's back to your 4-3 Sam, Mike, Will concept. Then between these three, the Sam, Mike, Will, or the nickel, if you're in a 4-down look, or a 4-2-5, excuse me, now they're in what I call two-back fits, true two-back fits, meaning if the fullback were to work this way towards the B gap, the Mike is going to flow with him no matter what. Now you're outside of it, he's inside of it, and then your Sam in this case would have to cut back through A gap. So it just depends on how you want to do it. You could do it that way. You could buy the backside safety into the fit. You could even bring him in the box and have your 4-3 look and bring this safety down. So now you can plug the gap with the Mike, plug A, Will, plug B, and then based on fullback, if he's working to the left as we see it, now your Sam will fit it, keeping this safety in the D gap. If the fullback works to the right as we see it, now you get the backside safety in. Just depends on how you want to do it. But the beauty is, from a coverage standpoint, it all remains the same. So right now, as you watch this thing, okay, they're checking, not a big deal. As you watch as this goes, right now, all we're getting, okay, is fullback is working over here to the field to the left. So there's our edge. That's our D gap. Here's our C gap. All right, now this A gap's open, but we're working the fullback this way. B gap, he's working over top with him, so we got to get somebody in this A gap. Well, that's going to be the Will backer. He's trying to travel with it. If that's the case, now with this structure, we're keeping the free safety out of it, and your weak safety back here has to now be back in that fit through B gap. So that's one variation, one way to do it. Okay, and you see the Will took the run through, which is fine. And now we got to get this safety to get downhill and help us out. So a couple different variations and ways to do it, but understanding with two back fits, there's three gaps. Three guys got to fit the gap however you want to chop that up. Here's another look. Now we have a 2x2 look. So we got our Will out here. This is a detached receiver. Number 13 on the right of your screen is detached. All right, so the safety is technically lane 2. Here's lane 2. Lane 1 is outside the screen. Now, your Will's in a gap fit. He could have B gap. You can chop up the front. You can move the front however you want to do it. If you move the front, give him C gap. That'll help him out. But with the back offset to the left, if you think about zone, the zone with the back offset to the left, the zone is going to typically go to the right. So your B gap defender right here, okay, that zone is going to work to him. So that gap's coming to him. It should be pretty easy for him to get in that fit. If the offset back, if we stayed in this front, the offset back was on the other side, now it's going to be hard for that Will to get into the gap because the gap's going to run away from him. So that's where you can still have cover 4, but you're going to have to chop the front up, or you can keep him out of it and buy the backside into it. So it just depends on how you want to do that. All right, again, zone's coming to him. That makes it pretty easy. You see this B gap's coming to him. Will can hit the B gap. Mike can hit the A gap, and then we're in good shape. Now you can see the Will ended up going vertical, which could be part of your scheme, but now you got to be able to, if he's working through it, we got to add this safety into it. And you can see right there with that B gap coming to him, that Will could have had a clean run through and got a tackle for loss fairly easily. Okay, another look, short in motion, not a big deal. All right. So here's where, and we talked earlier, we in our gaps we had A, B, C, D. Here's where we have an E gap. So they've added a gap out here. So what that means, if you want the backers in A and B gap, great. This safety has to be in the fit. And this is where the cover 4 variations can help you out. You can be in a 4-3 look and have this nickel or the Sam playing right here in the D gap and have the safety work in the E gap. Okay, I've done that a couple times. I've also back in your 4-2 with your reading side. The reading side would be to the right, where now here's your force defender, and you're getting your safety to work downhill into the D gap. And if you don't like that at all, that's fine too. You can bump the linebackers, keep this nickel as your force. You can move the mic over and give him either D gap or C gap based on where you got this end. All right. So in this look, he'd be your D gap. You can get the will into A gap and then bring this backside safety into the B gap. That's just basic run fit. That does not take into consideration chopping the front up, doing movements like that and canceling gaps to allow those linebackers and their safeties to be a little bit heavier in the coverage aspect of it, or be a little bit more patient in the run. So right here, obviously we got to get that will in B gap. With that gap almost running away from him, okay, he ends up right now, he's on the A gap side of it. So we have to get the safety coming downhill to help in that B gap if he can't fight over. And you can see here he got blocked out of there. So that safety has to now run down and fit it. So the safeties can understand in cover 4, going back to what we talked about, there's a lane 1 out here with the corner, but really there's no lane 2 for him to fit. So if he's not extra, now he becomes a gap fit in the B gap, and you can plus your backers over. If you want to keep him extra, that's fine. Now you've got to get the other safety involved in it too. And the beauty is, going through all this, guys, the beauty is we can do it however we want, as long as those guys on the field know where they fit and how to play fast. We're in good shape. And on game day, you can be in cover 4 however it is, just understanding who the extra hat is and run, where you want him and how you want to adjust with him. That's going to help you out. Bigger part that's going to help is understanding how they're trying to attack you, understanding the blocking schemes, understand what types of runs they like to have. Zone read, is it RPO game? Is it gap scheme? What are they trying to attack you with? And that'll help you to adjust who's got what fit, so you can make the guy extra that you want extra. All right, looking at cover 2, we went from 4 to 2 because really the run fits kind of remain the same. The only difference between the two is usually this flat defender out here is your corner in basic cover 2. Safeties are deep. So in cover 4, if you remember, the corners are the deep outside quarter. They're your lane 1 fit. The safeties are lane 2. Well, in cover 2, your corners, who are typically your flat defender, are lane 2. And then your deep half players, your safeties, become lane 1. So when you look at it, at the grand scheme of it, it's a different coverage against pass. But to me, the run fits should remain the same as your cover 4 run fits. Now, if you recall in cover 4, we talked about your skiff players, your seam curl flat players, and your 2 deep safeties. Those are typically the 4 you can mess with, or traditionally you'll mess with who's got what responsibility. Here in cover 2, really you're looking at flat defenders, and your hook curl or your seam droppers are usually the 3 that you're messing with, because your deep safeties, they're always going to be your lane 1 perimeter game fit in rule of 21. So it's really those guys that you're messing with. All right, here's a look at cover 2 now. We're pressed up into the boundary. And again, this is a 2-back look. So we're just getting, I call it zone split. It's zone concept going left with the fullback coming right to kick out. So basically, when all said and done, it's like the tight end aligned over here to the field. Now, the other thing that, talking to D line play, there's different ways. Are you going to take it on thick? Are you going to wrong shoulder it? Are you going to spill it? Are you going to box it? How are you going to hit it? All those types of things. I've been part of spill it. I've been part of box it. I've been part of hit it how you hit it. Just make sure you hit it. But the way I like to think about this is it's just a base block. In that base block is just coming from a little bit further away. It's not the tackle basing you, it's the fullback coming from the other side and base blocking you. So how you would naturally take on a base block, to me, it fits your basic scheme in day one teaching of how you're going to take that kick out block from the fullback coming from the other side. And you can see here in the run fits, this nickel out here to the field, he's doing a great job sitting and holding because he does have to honor the possible RPO game out there. And then he becomes your force defender, your in this case, you're laying 3 fit or your D gap fit based on scheme as he's working back across the formation. So let's take a look at the tight view. All right, so with this sniffer, this fullback working across, okay, the defensive end will end up C gap. Your nickel is your D gap fit, and that'll allow the will to play your B gap and the Mike to stay in A gap. If you get any RPO action out here, because of the fullback coming across, like he is, that nickel, if he's extremely fast, you're probably getting that inside slant or inside bang 8 coming right behind him, and the quarterback's going to hit it right off his ear. So that's one thing of concern that safety over top has to understand. If that nickel triggers, now he's got no underneath help. He's got a trigger on that bang 8. If they are running RPO and throwing RPO a lot to the field to that number 2 detached, out of this look, one adjustment you can make, again, messing with who's got what, you can invert the half on the backside. So this safety's deep half, corner's sitting out here. Really, that corner's the extra working back in because everything's away. But if you want to mess with it and get this safety back down in the fit, now you can plus your linebackers over and keep your strong safety who's sitting out here in that RPO window. That's a great way to do it. It's still cover 2. It's just an inverted cover 2. And with a single receiver over here to the left, as we see it, defense is right, he's really in man coverage anyways. You know, you've got 2 to the field, you got 1 to the backside. So as he's working back, it's the same thing as we would do in cover 4. We just invert that half. All right, so this right here, it's cover 4, but again, cover 2 principles apply, and that's what I want to talk about. A lot of us know it by palms. You can call it whatever you want. It's a clue technique on number 2. So the corner is cluing the release of 2. It's your basic route matching quarters concept with number 2 detached. You can do it with with a single detached and number 2 attached as well. But typically it's called when 2 are detached. So if number 2 is outside, so how I term it, bubble speed out, now the corner's sitting in the flat, safety's over top to 1. Just becomes cover 2. If number 2 pushes vertical, corners match a 1, it's cover 4. So that's why they're interchangeable. And once you can get the players to understand that these are cover 4 run fits, cover 2 matches it. If you are a quarters based team and a quarters route matching based team, cover 2 becomes a very easy install because they're already doing it out of palms if number 2's out to the flat. So nothing really changes. You're just basically dictating that, hey, this is how we're doing it. We don't got to worry about reading 2. You're just sitting there. That's cover 2. All right, so looking at this right here, Okay, you can see that the Sam or the nickel is tight into the box. Going back here, again, the back is offset to the left, so we're anticipating zone going to the right. So if that zone goes to the right, we're in great shape. The will is going to have your A gap with how we're set. The Mike has your B gap, and with that Mike's alignment, he can work more vertical downhill. And here's the beauty about this, guys. If you offset your linebackers, and this is something that when I got to one of the stops I was at a few years back, they were doing this, and once it was explained, it made complete sense. We talk about double teams. There's two ways that you defeat the double team, or you're able to take it on. Not talking technique wise. First way, the D line has to handle the double team and keep them off the linebackers so linebackers can run free. Well, you can do that, and it's tough on those D linemen. You're going to find guys that can do it, and that's great. The other way to do it is to allow the D line to run free and get the backers to trigger faster. To do that, you offset your linebackers away from the running back. That way, if you look here, if you're getting zoned to the right, typically you're going to get this double here up to the linebacker, right? Well, if the linebacker is over here and the zone's working, he's going to trigger straight downhill right away. So it's a lot harder to double team. And that's the same idea because this, excuse me, I drew that up wrong. I'm sorry about that. He's working up to B gap, right? He's here. He'll chip up to that A gap defender. If the A gap defender is over here triggering straight downhill, you can't help on that shade. You have to work immediately up to the backer. The backer's running scot free. So that's one easy way in adjustment, just alignment wise, that you can help yourself out. Okay, we got a couple pulls, that's fine. You track over the top and you can see the linebackers are fitting up on that. We're spilling with the end, all right? The wheel is over top. The wheel's going to end up boxing everything. The mic keeps flowing over top, as you can see here. The mic is your B gap to the left. As that guard pulls, okay, he's flowing. He continues to flow. We actually got counter here with the tackle pulling as well. So we got to get that end involved. But now your will is boxing. Your mic is all the way over the top. He's spilling one and boxing two. And then your end is spilling number two. So we're able to travel the linebackers in that case pretty well. Again, an easy adjustment on this is be able to get these safeties into the fit, okay? Or your corner if it's a single detached. But it's two detached here, so he's going to end up holding and falling back in pretty quick. So one thing you could do is you plus him over. That'll help track, and then you can close out this end and get this nickel back here involved in that run game. All right, last coverage we'll talk about, cover three. Cover three is your basic 4 under 3 deep concept. Again, talking about from the back end, you're looking at lane 1, rule of 21 for your corners traditionally, or your deep outside. You can rotate cover 3, go 3 strong, 3 weak, however you want to do it. Deep outside zone players are lane 1, rule of 21. Middle or post player is going to be your alley inside out. So cover 3 really, it's harder to mess with who has what in the run game based on past concept. So pretty much, you know, if you're the curl flat defender, you're lane 2 over here with 2 detached. You're the force defender over here, or the D gap defender. All right. If you are a seam player, or the curl flat, the hook curl, or anything like that, the strong hook, weak hook, however you want to term it, you're either a gap fit, or you may be a primary contain, but we need you inside. So those guys are going to fit inside, and then your curl flat defenders are really condensing everything from the outside in. Cover 3, it is what it is. You know, you're going to make sure you're good in the run. You have overhangs in the run game. Everybody's got the responsibility. The way to loosen it up and adjust guys' responsibility again, goes to defensive line play and twisting and stunting and doing those types of things up front. All right, here's another cover 3 look. All right, we got 12 personnel. Okay, that short in motion, you can see with the play action pass here, everybody's working to their fit. And then you got on the back end, you've got your third players working over top, and we get back up underneath that deep route here to the field. All right, here's another look, 21 personnel. Okay, and you can see here to the field, we ended up bringing this safety down inside. So your curl flat defender is out here. There's your lane 2 fit. Okay, this is your strong hook player working down inside. He's got a gap fit because if it was 3 by, he'd be a lane 3 fit, but number 3's in the backfield. It becomes this fullback. Now he's got that run through sitting right here. We got to get the backer over. Okay, we're post player, lane 1 here. And now that Will's got to get back up in there to help us out. Okay, here's one more look at it. Cover 3, you can see we're already in our structure. We're 4 under, 3 deep. Again, looking at it, lane 1, here's your post player. All right, the back end's pretty easy on that. Underneath, you got gap fits. Okay, now looking at it, you've got force defender here. Okay, you can have your force defender here, and then A gap, B gap are handled by these two. Here's your A gap fit, there's your B gap fit. Without chopping up the front, that's your basic structure to it. Now, the fun part about this, offenses are creative, that's fine. They move this sniffer around a little bit. All right, still looks like there's going to be a D gap, but now he inserts inside. Not a big deal, because here's now our edge, and your curl flat defender over here now just ends up boxing him through that open gap. He created 2 gaps. You already have 1 to fit the gap. You bring your second guy in, and you should be well and good against the run. The RPO side is over here on the right. So with that RPO side being on the right, now your curl flat defender, because you have a single detach, remember, curl flat defender has to be quick in the run game. If he's quick in that run game, the corner on that side needs to understand he's a man third. He's basically got him man to man. So any RPO action, he has got to hit it. Some offensive coordinators, guys, if you spin down that weak safety, if it's RPO coordinator, that weak safety comes down, they're reading him no matter what. Automatically read him to give or to throw the ball. Do we have any questions on any of the basic run fits and how those basic coverages work together?
Going once, going twice. Any questions? No. I know you got your contact info on there. Anything else you want to add, Coach, before we get out of here?
Yeah, the big thing is when you look at things, understand that you have to stop the run. Defenses have to stop the run first. Whether it's a passing team, running team, whatever it is, stop the run first, make them one-dimensional. And to do that, understand basic run structure, who's got what gap, what lane, and find your extra hat and run. And how can you play around with who the extra hat is to allow him to go play, and sometimes have him working up to a guy who doesn't have a run fit. That was one fun thing we did a few years back, is we figured out who they were trying to double team up to. So we kept him out of the run. In 2-back stuff, they were trying to double up to the Mike. Fine, we'll keep the Mike extra, and we'll have our 2 overhangs, and our Will fit the 3 gaps and keep him. So they're doubling up to nobody, and somebody is left unblocked. So have some fun with it. But it all starts with the basic setup and structure. And especially in today's game, when you get guys in, 2 weeks before camp, 3 weeks before camp, you got to get them up to speed as quick as possible. Keep it as simple as you can and link it all together. Thank you guys. And my contact information is there, my cell number, my Twitter handle, or my X handle, excuse me. It is Coach_Lemke. If you have any questions or want to hit me up and chop it up, whatever it is, my phone's on me almost 24/7. So please hit me up and we'll connect.